So I wanted to start this by disclaiming that I am not a political expert and I am not a dating expert. I simply just wanted to express, not necessarily a concern, but express an idea that I had in terms of the two and what their correlation is to each other. Now, what I'm talking about is, of course, dating and politics. So I got into a debate with a coworker, and I've brought it up with some other friends that are on both sides of the political spectrum. So what I would like to ask to you, to the audience here, is does political views affect dating? Now, to an extent, I mean, the answer is yes. It does affect it to a point, but I want to see what everyone's thoughts are specifically. Also, another disclaimer. This is not to spread hate. This is not to separate anyone. This is not to start an argument. I just want to present something to open a discussion. Now, if you follow my channel, it's pretty obvious where I stand politically. Not to say that either side is wrong in this case. I just want to see what everyone's views are. Now, when it comes to dating, how important is your political views? Now, I'm not saying you have to fine tooth comb the entire or every subject of what the opposite person believes in, because I do believe in compromise, but to what extent can you agree on and then not agree on? And this is specifically talking about dating and relationships. I'm not an expert on either one, but I'm also not talking about just the random people you meet at a bar for a one night thing. We're not talking about that. So as far as relationships and dating goes, I've always had friends tell me that, oh, you can't let politics into the dating world, or oh, you can't bring politics into dating. It's been worded differently, but same thing. And personally, I believe that that's not 100% true, because my side of the argument is that if I believe very strongly in, I'm going to try not to use examples. On my last recording, I used several examples, but just for the sake of not pissing anyone off, let's not get into specific examples. So let's say that I believe strongly in X whatever, and say the opposite person believes in Y whatever. So they're completely opposite. Can we find a compromise? Well, I mean, I'd like to think that we could, but I know what a lot of people will probably comment is, well, it's going to depend ultimately on the person. And yes, that is true. It will depend on both parties, whether if you're willing to compromise. But I think that to an extent, if I believe very, very, very strongly in X example, that there's not really any room for me to budge, then a person with the opposite belief on X reason is not going to be compatible with me. Now, I have personally dated people who are completely opposite sides of the spectrum. Some were in between. Some were only different in certain subjects. There have been a few of them that we were actually very similar, but there was only one or two major views, we'll call it, as to why she wasn't willing to work with it. Now, in that situation, I was willing to compromise. I was willing to look past it, but that wasn't the case with her. She decided that that was the factor that not broke the camel's back, but that was the deciding factor for her. That was her reasoning for not taking it any further. So I understand it definitely depends on each person, but I just don't believe that whenever it comes to dating, maybe at first, and also I understand the first thing that shouldn't come out of your mouth, or the first thing that shouldn't be discussed whenever you either meet somebody or date somebody, is who'd you vote for in the last 5 elections. That I don't think that's. I will say that's not important. That's not what you should be at. You should be getting to know the person. However, I do think it's important, though, that it is something that you should know. And I do always, especially with whether if it's new people, coworkers, whoever, and especially how everybody's offended by everything nowadays, one of the first things I do ask, mostly in the workplace, is where they stand on, and it's mostly because, especially in the workplace, everyone jokes around, but we also have to keep it at some level to where, we don't hurt anybody's feelings, because God forbid. But I like to know where most people stand, so that way you can kind of know, and it's really not even so much with politics, but, how much you can joke around and talk with to people. But I think that's the case in most workplaces, but that's veering off track a bit, so let's just get back into just the dating portion of it. What I would like to hear from you is, what is your stance on how important political views should be in dating and in relationships, and if so, how do you work around building the relationship without political views getting in the way or creating a blockade, so to speak? Now, I also understand, too, I have in my life met several, uncountable amount of people who were either middle, far right, far left. I've met people all over the spectrum that's where they fall, but they don't care for politics. They don't care. They don't vote. They don't vote for any kind of election. They just live their life. And I understand that to a point. I haven't voted in every single election, so I get it. But there's also the other side of that you have ones that go out and protest every little thing, or ones who just go and vote. There's obviously different sides of it. But what I just want to know is, to open up this discussion, where do politics come into play when it comes to dating? Now, I will also say that in spite of everything that I'm bringing up, I don't intend to bring politics into yet another portion of our everyday life, because everything is political now. You can't go to a coffee shop without it being political, because one shop might be extremely on one side, and then another coffee shop might be on one side, or the opposing side. That's also the same thing with clothing brands. Some fall far left, other ones fall far right, some don't care. So I hate to have to bring politics into something else yet again, because I think that politics and government needs to stay out of more social areas. That's just me. So again, I hate to have to bring it into dating, but that's also why I wanted to make this video. Where should it be and where should it stop? Let me know what you guys think. Again, this isn't to separate anyone. This isn't to spread any kind of hate. I just want to see what everyone's thoughts are on this. So please leave a comment. Let me know what you think. And we will see you in the next video.